everyone. It's a pleasure to have you all join us for what's going to be an excellent couple of hours of diving into the world of AI. My name's Mary. I'm going to be your MC for today, and I'm joined here by the lovely Frank Wolf, who is the co-founder of Staffbase and our Chief Strategy Officer. And let's jump into it.
So let's talk about AI and like what's sort of an introduction for AI for communications. And if you happen to be at Voices in New York, I talked there in a presentation there. This is a more like updated and condensed version of it. And I want to start with a major term that's quite important to understand. For many years, we are seeing something that we can call predictive AI. So artificial intelligence already plays a big role in many things like weather forecasts, like fraud detection for credit card companies, or social media streams. So it's already used in many cases, but it's more in the background. It's like it's working there. You don't really see it, and it has the name predictive AI. And last year, with a lot more computing power and a lot more and better models, we could do something with predictive AI that seemed impossible before. And I brought an example here that hopefully makes this very easy to see. So with predictive AI, for instance, I could take a picture that's a real picture of a man. I could take this picture and ask AI, give me a description of the picture. And you can imagine this functionality was very helpful in the past. If you run a big social media platform, millions of pictures are uploaded every day. You want to have an understanding what's on the pictures, because if you have content guidelines, for instance, you want to really make sure you enforce them, right? So that's an example for predictive AI. And what you could do now is to say, can we actually turn the table? And can we say, let's take the description and create something out of this? So we take the description, and with generative AI, we have a way to create new content out of text, right? And that's what we all see now, and that how it feels like AI as coming from the shadow into the light. So much content, and it's on the picture side, on text side, on media side, and that's everywhere. And that's sort of the revolution. It's sort of also a revolution that kind of hits, especially communications, because predictive AI didn't have too many use cases for communication. With generative AI, like this horizon really opens up in both sides. A lot of great stuff that will help the job and the profession, but also kind of a challenging side of things. And I will talk about this in a minute. So when we talk about AI now, I talk especially about generative AI, and I want to dive into the main directions there. And number one is something that all of you probably already know. It's about these large language models and things like ChatGPT. And for definitions here, first, ChatGPT is actually a chatbot app that's based on GPT-4. And GPT-4 is something that we call a large language model, or short LLM. And you can say like ChatGPT sort of standing on the shoulders of giants in this case, right? And the powerful thing here is this large language model, which comes from OpenAI, and it's pretty much, technically you would say it's a neural network that sort of generates all this stuff and is pretty much the core of what's actually happening. GPT-4 is from OpenAI, from the company, and ChatGPT is also from OpenAI, but there are other vendors out there who are also doing this. Microsoft doesn't have its own large language model. They are using the model from OpenAI. So GPT-4, that's, by the way, it's also what, if you use Staffbase and Staffbase Companion, we are using the OpenAI model hosted by Microsoft. Google has a large language model that's called Palm 2, and the Google chatbot app is called Bard. And there are a lot of, as I said, other large language models. One example is Meta, like from Facebook. Their LLM is called Llama, right? And these are out there, and you can expect like this space to explode with a lot more of these models. And right now, if you ask like, what's the best one? The best one is actually really from OpenAI, it's GPT-4. This creates the best results. But if you would ask me, what is there a contender? Probably it's going to be Google in the near term. Google's working on a new project there. They call it Project Gemini. So their next large language model, probably coming out somewhere later this year, is going to be an entirely new model. They put in a lot of effort to make this great. Like it was a big wake-up call to have ChatGPT there. So we can expect a lot of innovation in the space. That's what I'm saying. Very interesting times ahead. And right now, GPT-4 and ChatGPT are like leading the pack here. What is it? I guess many of you have already started to use it and try it, and we'll talk a bit more later about like what's prompting guidelines or how can you prompt this to really work well. I want to give you here one aspect that I find really interesting and also something maybe to look forward for the next models. If you ask ChatGPT, write me a text. You can also say, imagine you are a specific person. That's really interesting because you get a certain style of writing, right? I said like, you are JFK, write me an invitation for an internal company safety training, and you get like, how would JFK have written this, right? And then you see here, I said, okay, now imagine you were Stephen King, right? And it's pretty much rewriting this in the style of Stephen King. And by the way, I was really surprised look at this sentence from Stephen King. I need to check here. This is our chance to draw the curtains of ignorance and shed light on the corners of our office that often stay in the shadows. Who has ever written such a nice sentence about company safety traits? The point is that I wanted to make here, if you look at the second prompt, if this prompt would stand alone, you wouldn't know what this is all about. Like the application wouldn't know that it's about a safety training. So what it does, it keeps the context of it, right? So it understands, okay, the first question was about a safety training. Now, Stephen King, probably it's still about a safety training, and I try to change the style. So what we say here or can talk about here is a so-called context window. So the big innovation as part of this is this application can keep the context over a couple of prompts. That's why it feels like a real conversation with sort of a human, because the chat can stay in the context and answer based on the context we've provided before. And this context window also with every version gets bigger and bigger. GPT-3, the model before, had a context window of about 2,000 words. And GPT-4 has now a context window of 25,000 words. And Google already published like a paper where they say, how can we do a context window of 1 million words? And if you think about like, how can these models get better, like one major thing will be the context of it, right? Imagine you're going daily to ChatGPT and you're prompting things, and it would remember things you prompted 3 weeks ago, 3 months ago, or at some point it would say, hey, Frank, like 3 years ago, you did this other text. It was like, maybe we should take this into account and so on. The longer the context window will be, the more natural and the better this whole thing will be, right? So as one hint for new models coming out, you could ask, hey, what's the context window here? Like, how did it actually goes this further, right? And the question is like, does ChatGPT know certain personalities, major characters? Yes, it knows. Whenever a character has created a lot of content, like US presidents, for instance, or major writers, it will have all the content and it can impersonate. If you say impersonate myself and ChatGPT doesn't have content of you, it cannot impersonate you. With the context window, you can do things like I give you text of mine and say, here like 10,000 words of text I've written, analyze my writing style and give me the text in my writing style, right? But the more text there's available, the better ChatGPT can impersonate things. So why is this good for comms, or what's interesting? It's interesting in like two major dimensions, I would say. One is write better content faster. And there's actually numbers out there, like here from Jacob Nielsen. He's one of the UI, UX research heroes out there. And they've done tests and they say you can speed up the writing process of up to 59%, especially the brainstorming and drafting part. Editing will have to be done by humans because especially in comms, you need to make sure whatever you put out is correct, right? but still it will speed up the process and will be a great help. And the early results we see, also a lot of early tests that we are doing ourselves, it's going to be very helpful. And that's also why we're pushing it so hard to bring it into the Staffbase platform. Writing gets better. And the other thing that gets better is the whole research part. Don't use it as like a Google search engine and search for specific things. I think Google's way better here, but it's great for summarizing things, right? So if you want to have to research about a certain topic, you can use a prompt like this one, like to say, what are the most important studies from the past years? List this here, right? Many know the data is only until September 2021. So if studies are like later, it will not be included. Hopefully in the future that will be the case. But it's great to sum up things. If you want to test something like this, you can also take the annual report of your company, put this into ChatGPT and say, write me a 50 or like 500 words or 200 words summary. It's really great at summarizing, condensing things. So that's really powerful in the way. So we talk, I think we've shown this many times before. A way to think about this is to say there are positive impacts, and a lot of them are what I just talked about, like faster research, better, easier creation. For comms, this also means it helps to enable local editors to write better content. And it will also help in many ways to provide employee services like an employee chatbot where you can ask things with natural language, like where's my benefits overview and so on. It will help employees find things better and faster. On the other side, we also have a lot of like potentially negative things that are going to happen. Like one obvious thing is if comms right now in a company is only like the writing office, and a lot of middle managers might say, okay, I can write stuff myself now with ChatGPT. I don't need comms anymore. So comms, I think, pushes comms a bit to be more strategic in this regard. Misinformation will be a challenge in many ways. And I think also authenticity will be a challenge, and the whole amount of content, because it's easy to create content. A lot of us are already drowning in too much communication. That's why that will be a challenge here as well. But in general, I think, especially on the text side of things, much more exciting than it's scary in this regard. And that's why also we want to encourage everyone here, go there, test it, and see it for yourself. On the media side, so generative AI, text, and now we talk about media, it's pretty much the same underlying models. That's why we see there a lot of also change and development in the past couple of months. And especially with pictures, you see tremendous progress there, where pictures are looking now lifelike pictures, really hard to distinguish what's fact or fiction anymore. And there's also with one of the leading tools, the Midjourney, there are some nice trends that I personally really like. So one trend is on the left, the celebrities in everyday jobs, like Brad Pitt as a construction worker, or Tom Cruise at the supermarket. Or another cool trend is the historic selfie trend. So there's a lot of selfies from historic events. I think it would be that's a great way to sort of spice up a bit like the history lessons at school probably in the future. I show this because I want to show to you, I think that's art. And the whole discussion, is this all fake, or can AI be art? I think the creativity to come up with these ideas and create these pictures, that's already art in itself, and it just shows what's possible with this modern AI image generators. Just in terms of what's out there in the market, there are a couple of these generators. Midjourney is one, DALL-E is one. DALL-E is the one from OpenAI, and we have Stable Diffusion. These are like the three main ones. And right now we have a pretty clear winner here. And I can give you one example. We did the example with the question, show me a picture of the Pope in New York on a skateboard. and that prompt, we put the prompt into DALL-E, we put the prompt into Stable Diffusion. So you see like very basic pictures here, like looks a bit broken also in that regard. And if you go to Midjourney, Midjourney is actually really, really good in that regard. So, and that's something we'll see much more in the future. And by the way, for this picture, I know it's pretty small, but the right hand of the Pope here has 6 fingers. That's usually one of these things where you say, oh yeah, still it's AI. Most of them come now at a cost. Midjourney is a cost. I think it's $10 a month or so in terms of the cost. So the challenge is seeing was believing, not anymore. Many of you may have seen this fake image of the Pope. 2 things here that are important. One is you see an emerging trend that media companies are like labeling these pictures and saying generated by AI. Maybe that's also a way forward to deal with these pictures, to make sure, like a watermark, to make sure, hey, be careful, that's an AI picture. And the other one that I wanted to highlight here, this picture was created by a 31-year-old construction worker from Chicago. So everyone now, you don't need to be a media specialist, everyone now can create these pictures. And there's no way you can distinguish them anymore. And while the picture of the Pope might not have like had a lot of like bad outcomes, there are other pictures. Maybe you've seen this. A couple of weeks ago, there was this picture of a supposedly like a fire or explosion near the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. And this was a fake picture. But with this picture being distributed on fake channels on Twitter, the stock market, I think, went down 2%. And so until they realized, oh, it's actually a fake picture. And we all will see a lot more of this, a wave of these sort of fake stuff coming up. And that's something that's a real challenge for communications. That's definitely something you will have to deal with. And that's something that will be a challenge in your roles, right? So for social media, there was a question, do you need to say they were made by AI? You don't have to give credit. No. First, for instance, for Midjourney, there is a subscription where you can, if you pay a bit more money, you can use this, take the pictures afterwards and use it for wherever you want to use it. There is not a current, let's say, guideline on how to market and say, where is this coming from? And there is an emerging like good practice to say image created by Midjourney and generated by, and then maybe even a person if a certain person has created this picture. So there's some emergent rules, but no hard rules yet how to mark these pictures. So the question is AI an opportunity or a threat? And especially like which rules do we need, or what are like the action points, especially from a communications point of view? And for that, I wanted to give you 2, because I know a lot of writing out there, like about pros and cons and the challenges, 2 smart things that I want to show here. One is a very smart presentation by Tristan Harris and Asa Raskin. Tristan Harris is pretty well known. He is the author of The Social Dilemma. It's a Netflix documentation about social networks and how they work and how this engagement algorithm really sort of starts to destroy societies and why it's so dangerous. And they have, in March, they've done a presentation. It's called The AI Dilemma. It's, if you look for like more cautious, pessimistic point of view, that's the smartest presentation I've seen. So I can highly recommend that to have a look at that. The main thing that they do there is pretty much, we'll share the links in the chat. Yes, happy to do so. The main thing that they do there is to say, for social media, in the first thing, it looked really nice and it looked like give everyone a voice, connect with your friends, and join like-minded communities and so on. But then we've seen there's like actual behind the nice face, there's a small monster, and addiction, disinformation, and so on. And then they say, but even behind that, there's a much bigger monster, and that's this engagement monster that pretty much entangles every part of our society, and now really has a lot of like negative impact in many ways on our society. And I think that's a really smart analysis, and they pretty much do the same thing with AI, and they say on the first side, AI has a lot of good outcomes and a lot of interesting things. On the second, there's sort of some challenges that we see, but the real monster here is again entanglement, and it will be it's a race for intimacy. Like AI services want to be your personal best friend or your personal service, and will define a lot of things in your life, right? So very interesting. I can highly recommend that if you have the time in that. And the other one, that's the more optimistic view, also very smart, very thorough, and a great read here is from Mark Andreessen. He's a venture capital, one of the co-founders of Andreessen Horowitz, and he's written this article about like why AI will save the world. And I can also highly recommend it because he goes into all the upsides and also the potential downside, and is really good argumentation why this is good. So if you say I want to understand the spectrum and I want to really have the smartest people teach me something, that's something I can definitely recommend. And talking about smart people, here's my third recommendation, and that's also a nice like mental model to think about it, is from Nicholas Thompson. He's the CEO of The Atlantic. And he does something that he calls the most interesting thing in tech. It's like a daily video. He's recording mostly somewhere in public spaces. And it's really funny to watch this, and really interesting, really very smart guy. And he did this one about AI and the challenges of AI, and should we regulate AI, right? And he was pretty much saying like there are three buckets to think about. And the first bucket is there will be near-term challenges. And the near-term challenges will be around accelerating things that already are a challenge to us as companies or society, right? So misinformation will be a challenge. Like you've seen the pictures, like fake news will be a challenge, cyber security, hacking, and so on, right? Immediate things we need to deal with. It's already starting, and it will hit companies. I explained before, you need today about 2 minutes of voice of any given person to recreate that voice with AI and make that voice say anything you want, right? So it's very easy. The voice of all your CEOs is out there. It's very easy to create their voices, and then you can use the voice to call employees, commit fraud, and whatever you want to do out there, right? So there's a lot of things to be solved. The second one is the medium term, and he calls this like there will be a disruption of the labor market, especially more white-collar jobs. A lot of people where we never thought that could be like hit by automation. Also from the creative side of things, I've heard the example this week of an agency not doing photo shoots anymore. They do all the pictures in AI now, and all the post-processing in AI and so on. Like they save a lot of money, and also a lot of carbon dioxide and so on. Like it's a lot of good things, but it will hit creative jobs pretty hard. And that's something that's going to happen, right? And the question is, how do we deal with that as a society? And a lot of people are very optimistic that there will be more and other jobs be created, but it's still something to deal with. And the last thing is this more long-term thing, and everyone talks about this. This is the like, will AI kill humans at some point, or called the alignment problem, which is around like misaligned AI might have a task like there's the famous paperclip thing, if you know about this. Like you go to an AI, to a powerful AI, and say, I need a lot of paper clips, and the AI will pretty much not stop at anything, will kill all humans, will pretty much burn down Earth just to create as many paper clips as possible, right? So that's the whole idea about a misaligned AI is not against humanity. It's just trying to solve a thing and doesn't see anything else. And he's pretty much saying the long-term thing, it might be interesting to talk about. We need to, like some regulation now, we need to think about this, but this is really far out there. Don't waste your time too much with this. Like focus on the near-term and the medium-term topics because they are important. We should deal with them. And that's also a bit of the setup that I've shown in my Voices presentation is to say, from a communications point of view, you pretty much, I can think about 5 things to be done, right? Define AI guidelines for the company, maybe in terms of what I've shown before, don't create artificial voices or artificial pictures of employees or leaders. Second, establish trusted comms channels because only trusted channels can actually make sure that you can distinguish fact or fiction. The individual content, the individual picture cannot be distinguished anymore. The channel will be the thing that builds the trust. Number 3, use AI, know how it works, and use it to make a better, faster job to increase your productivity. Number 4 is there's a great chance here to become an AI champion in your own company, teach leaders about what's going on, about the challenges and other things. I think communication is in a great place for that. And the last thing is around this, if comms is only like the writing office of the company, your job is much more in a challenge than being a strategic partner for the business, thinking about measurement, thinking about campaigns, thinking about strategic narratives. The more you think beyond that, the more you're in a supporting, enabling, strategic role, the less the discussion will be, can ChatGPT like replace your job, right? So that is an overview. I hope this helps to set the field a bit. And we will go in quite a few of these topics now, one level deeper in the next session. And I think the next session is the benefits of AI with Alex and Mina.
Perfect. Thanks, Frank.